Okay, I got a good video for you guys here today. Now this is a California juniper, originally collected by Tom Vong and then sold through my friend Guy down in the California area. I bought this tree at the expo. As you can see here, it's been restyled since I've gotten it, and there's a video on that. If you want to check it out, I'll put it into the description. But you might see something weird here. This thing has a skirt. This skirt really is to prevent rain from getting into the soil more than it needs to. These trees come from a very arid, dry environment where they get maybe less than 12 inches of rain a year. And here in Seattle, we get approximately 37 to 38 inches a year. And the bulk of it happens in the wintertime. And I'm making this video here late October, so the rain season is coming. So I gotta protect this thing and make sure that it doesn't get too wet. And when it gets too wet, it starts to lose its branches, which is not ideal. This is not something I would suggest for those P&W folks who don't have a greenhouse. I do, and this is where it's going later today. But for the most part, I also want to kind of dispel a misconception about Seattle that we get a ton of rain. We do get a ton of rain in this place called the Aberdeen Reservoir, where there's like 140 inches, but typically in the Seattle area, about 37, 38 inches a year. 4 of that happens in the summer. The rest of it happens in the wintertime. Instead of snow, we get water. Anyways, so if you want to get something like this for the PMW, I wouldn't suggest it, but I wanted it, and I love the California junipers, and the heart wants what the heart wants. And so then I bought this tree. I'm glad I got it from Tom Vong. I respect him as a collector. And so yeah, this tree's got some sentimental value to me. Anyways, so the video isn't about, in particular, this tree. It's actually about the trip I made down to the GSBF Bonsai Rendezvous just recently. And you're gonna see how Mauro handles one of these California junipers in his demo. Oh, it was so good. Lots of information, and he did a wonderful job styling it. He did the demo with Sue Thin as well as Sam Tan, and they worked on different trees. And I have a short if you want to check that out, but this video is mainly going to about Mauro's demo. He asked me to do it, actually. Mauro asked me to make the video. So I put a mic on him, and he worked the California juniper. Really good. Lots of information in that video, and it's a little longer than usual, but I think it's worth it. So check that out.
It's always great for me to really interact with other bonsai masters. I feel every time, I have this chance to do demos with other professionals. I can also acquire new knowledge from them and really enrich my knowledge into this bonsai art. We all do bonsai with passion and with our vision, and for me it's great to be able to share my vision and my passion for bonsai. It's been now more than 10 years that I go down in LA and work there. Originally I went twice a year. Now I normally go all the month of January and work for some private clients. They have a lot of California juniper. It became one of my favorite species, especially in that hot and dry environment of LA. It does very well. This is actually a tree that belonged to one of my clients that he collected probably 5 years ago. And then he sold to another client that basically sold the tree for this demo. It's a very interesting material. It's not one of the oldest California that we are used to see, especially the one with these big waves that sometimes we get the chance to see. For example, at the Huntington Library, there are some beautiful ones. But this is a pretty kind of I would call a middle-age California. So normally, California starts as a little bush, gets stronger, starts spreading out, then for the heat and the harsh condition, start losing some branches, and always kind of redirect the energy into new parts. This is typical of California. One part gets weaker, That's why there is dead wood, and one part that's stronger, and the tree build another living line. We spent a few years to get this tree stronger. I will never work on a California and on a juniper in general if I don't see good whips. This is the sign of the tree that tells you now is the time. Because we feel sometimes the green is nice, is good, but we don't have the whips. Whips are the signal that the tree is developing a lot of auxin. Auxin is the growing hormone. That means there is a good interrelationship between roots and foliage. Sometimes when we collect California juniper, but also in Europe, junipers in general, we basically get home a big stump. There are not many roots because they grow in harsh environment. The taproot is very down. We have to cut it, and so it's like a big cutting. So need some years to rebuild that root ball that can become a reliable part for the tree to really help bringing up especially water and obviously nutriments, okay? So the prep eventually remove. We can still use green coming from that long branch that originally was crossing the front, but now is in the back, so it's not bothering me. And actually is much compact. I have beautiful whips here. I have a good branch here connected to this live line that I can bend down and start creating depth. So I have the feeling that this could be a good front to create a nice and compact tree, highlight a little bit the proportion of the tree, that is something interesting, and compress the green around the trunk, creating nice movement with the green and highlighting some gene, so having this kind of a horns that also is typical of very old juniper here in California. So, you know, I think we're gonna start working our way up from this as a front, cleaning a little bit, adding some shari lines. We have basically 3 live line here in this front compared to the 2 live line we have in this other part. We have this one that twists around and this one that twists over for this branch. Actually, this is a vein that is partially gone. There is a lot of the vein that is dead, and only a little part that is alive and twist around here. So also in terms of live line, this is a much better and reliable front, because having strong vein will give us the chance to develop them and getting them narrow and more roundish in time, creating shari and more shari. And so we're gonna work on the tree from this side. So Felipe already started wiring the lower branch, start doing some cleaning using the Rudiban and really remove the bark over the part where the trunk is dead already to really define which one are exactly the live lines. This is interesting to see. We see these big waves of California juniper, and some people always ask me how that wave formed. And the reply is the wave formed by the tree dying and growing away from the dead wood. So along hundreds of years, this part will keep growing, narrowing and narrowing, because the live line always builds the dead wood and goes away from the original shari. You can see in part of this tree, especially here, we have an older part of the shari, then a part that I just cleaned, and then is the live line. So this part, in 400-500 years, if it keep growing and stays alive with some green, it will be a big wave. And so sometimes they separate from the original trunk, and that's the way how we get this fantastic, that is the typical shape, in my opinion, of the California juniper, different from other kind of juniper here in US and even in Europe. In Europe, we have Phoenicia juniper, that is a coastal tree, so also hot and dry environment that is able to build this kind of waves, but that's the only one that has that particular shape like the California or sometimes Utah. But even Utah don't have so many of those waves because it's from probably a more colder environment, and it tend to become bigger rather than really more wavy, like you can see also this one, okay? This way is a guy wire. put a guy wire, branch down. So I call two-dimensional movement. You want a three-dimensional movement, you put the wire and you twist the branch in the position you want. Then the branch is stiff, you have to put some raffia, or sometimes you have to use a thicker wire, so you put raffia to protect the branch from the wire more than all the fiber together. Then branch become thicker. According to the species, you have different technique you can use. So you can split along the way the fiber with a bark splitter. So you allow the fibers inside of the branch to slide in the moment you put the branch in position. Or there is a branch with some deadwood, so you have to carve the deadwood out of the branch to basically remove the stiffer part that will not be able to hold tension during the bend, and then eventually to re-support the living fiber, you have to add a piece of wire inside, almost to rebuild the bone of the branch, that is the hardwood that you took it off. So there are different techniques. So according to the type of bend, you can pick the one that may basically suit better for your need. In this case, I have a branch, it's pretty flexible. There is a little bit of shari over the top, but the shari is actually in the extended part of the fiber. So I'm not worried because even if there is a separation in the shari, does not affect the living part, because the living part is underneath. That is where is the compression of the fibers. So I just put some raffia to protect the branch here, and then I push it down. I also will expect eventually a little bit of separation in the lower part of the live line. Doesn't make any problem, because again, when the live lines start growing basically separately from the deadwood, we can also use the technique of separating the vein from the deadwood. If you go on my YouTube channel, actually the last video is a video I did with a big California, where I took totally from halfway up the frontal vein of a California juniper that was already round and almost detached from the deadwood. I took it out and moved sideways to create movement, visual movement for the composition. Basically secure the tension here, and then now with the help of Felipe, I push and I separate the live line here from the deadwood. So now I push the branch down, almost in contact with this other gene, and now I have my side branch. So as I said originally, 4 points of the bonsai design. Number 1, first branch. Number 2, counterbalance. And then number 3, depth and apex. Okay? So I'm getting the work done step by step. Clean the first branch. Felipe is wiring everything to prepare for positioning. Now I work for getting the second branch in position, and step by step we will go up, and Felipe will chase me with fine wire, and hopefully we get the work done. You see, for the system of the tree, that will help the overall energy to stay high, and I don't have a downward of energy on a styling, removing eventually too much at the same time. So I keep the tree high in energy, and I can keep developing the tree, and then along the year simplify the parts that maybe I don't need anymore. So, you know, this branch is way out compared to the first branch, but it's not bothering aesthetically. I can just put it in and create a little green here as a depth, and then eventually when these get stronger and the upper branch also they can be bent more down, this branch will don't be useful anymore, but we will be 1 year or more away from the first styling that is also the kind of a tougher one for the tree, and then we can remove that branch and have the tree going on its way. Okay, branch is more or less in the position we want. Also, I don't want to do some pushing too much, because otherwise it will be difficult for Felipe to go in and wire the finer branches. But what I'm doing, I'm putting the primary wire in the direction I will bend the branches, let the branches open, Philippe can go and wire them, and then at the end when we'll start compressing and pushing, we're gonna have everything ready to become a pad. While I go up, and this is I always do in the first styling, I always try to improve branches and keep branches that has a lot of strength. You can see these guys, and eventually remove weaker branches that were trapped inside of the tree. They start dying back, so they are not reliable branches. So in the first styling, you want these to build the future structure of the tree, not stuff like this. When you prepare the tree, eventually you save one of these branches and say, let's see if he's able to get some strength, create a good whip, and maybe I can. But when I style, these branches are not useful at all. You see there is another one here, you see? Normally we have a weak branch, and then the side one got stronger and went up because it could, you know, have a little bit of apical dominance. Now I finish some major wire here, and then I will help Philippe to wire everything. When everything is wired, we start pushing the tree a little bit more together, setting the pad and get to the final shape. Wire up to the top, I can start a little bit positioning and cleaning the pads. So again, I will normally work in this way. Start from the first pad, get everything nice and clean, position, move to the counterbalance, and then my strategy normally is if the first pad is right, you know, according to the front, the counterbalance is left, then I move up in a clockwise direction. So basically I consider the silhouette and the shape and the green of the tree as a cone, and so I have the control of all the points going up to the apex while I do that. Sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't do it. We will see how it's going with Philippe, but I generally, when I work a tree by myself, either if I'm doing a first styling or a refinement where I have already structure done, I tend to work in that way because I have the main control of all the points around the tree. I'm not styling an apex and then going back to a first branch, you know. I tend to be very systematic and follow a certain. When I start a pad for the first time, I need to use you know, most of the branches around. So the main idea is with the longer one, creating what I call the hand, so the under part of the pad, that is kind of the skeleton. And you know, as many as I have, more I can redefine the end of the pad. In this case, I have mainly two, but these two spread with other side one. So I use those to create my, what I call the outer line. Then, more or less, according to the need, I clean the underline from whatever is flopping to give a little bit of more refined look. And then whatever is coming from inside, you see, I use to create and start creating volume. This is not a refined pad because it's just a rough styling, but what we expect from the green, especially leaving a strong part, this part will get stronger, and basically on Juniper I call they will flower up. So they will tend to open to then reshoot from the center. So if you then want to do a second styling on the pad, you will have some area where you want the green to, you know, develop and fill in, some area where you want to go in and prune, so that part will thick up and open and will create the nice pad. Why? The two lower branches are my kind of a direction catcher for the eyes of the observer. So I can decide where I want the eyes of the observer to come. I want the eyes of the observer to come here. So I push this closer to the trunk and then I move the eyes of the observer, because how our eyes work, and we don't realize it, but it is how we develop as human beings. We try to always to find geometry and connecting points. So when you see a tree, you always go in the center between these two lines. So do you want to highlight the trunk? Put in the center between these two lower points. Do you want to highlight the movement? In my case, I want you to see that. And so that's the central part of the tree. It's a little aesthetical trick that you can use while you style a tree to direct the eyes of the observer to a certain point and eventually move them away from a defect. Sometimes a defect on a bonsai, you cannot cut it away. You have to leave it with it, but you have to hide it. So sometimes a defect is very much forward, so you cannot even hide, but you can make the eyes of the observer looking somewhere away. It's like the magician. While he stole your pocket, he looks some other, and it's the same you do when you start. You see? Thank you. And I have this movement, and your eyes stick here. But because it's the way how I position the green around that basically bring your attention to where I decide. It's like a painter. You can paint a nice scenario, but also when you look at the scenario, you see with the lighting of that painting, the painter on the 4 horses want you to see something. You see that one horse is totally in darkness. He didn't want you to focus on that one. He wanted you to focus on the interaction between the 2 horses in the center. And then it was how he was using the lighting on that painting. And the same you do on the bonsai. When you study, I was lucky. I was really lucky because I graduated in architecture and I was exposed indirectly to all these sort of things because we study art. And if we really consider that bonsai is art, we're gonna use the same tools that painter use on a painting and a sculptor use on a sculpture, but just in a different way, okay? A structural work, especially with the upper whip that I move inside between the gin to then open all the finer foliage to really compress and create the apex. The apex is in between the 2 lower lines. So you see how one side goes up and then come down here. We have bigger negative spaces in the dynamic side, closer negative spaces in the counterbalance side. So basically for this morning is everything. Thank you so much, Felipe, for the help. Good job. And thank you so much for all your questions. See you at 2 o'clock.
Whew. Really good to watch that live in person. I hope you got something out of that video because Mauro is a very well-respected bonsai artist out in Europe. He comes from Italy, and obviously if you watch the video, you know that by now. And he has an architect background, so his spatial identity is really good. His technicality for design is really, really superior. And he's very humble. I enjoy Mauro's presence and his knowledge and his ability to connect with people. I think that's very important. Because without people, bonsai is just yourself working on a tree. The community of bonsai is another aspect that I really appreciate. And so I enjoyed going to the gala, the dinner, where they presented multiple awards, auctioned off trees. It was really fun and a great opportunity to meet a very tight-knit, almost family down there in the Golden State with the bonsai community. So anyhow, I got to take this tree into the greenhouse. Stick around because I got a ton of videos in the works, and you don't want to miss anything. So don't forget to subscribe and do all that other stuff, because there's a lot of people watching who don't subscribe and they're gonna miss stuff. All right, see you guys later.